Go online, or better yet, go to your local retailer and take a look at chainsaws, and you'll realize pretty quickly that there's a wide variety of saws from which to choose. So how do you pick the one that's right for you? Well, the first thing you do is decide what the use is going to be. Now, if you look here, I've got this chainsaw here that has about, I think it's about a 15 or 18 inch bar. I can't remember exactly. But this thing has a 32cc engine, and this thing has been a workhorse around the farm for me. I've had this thing probably 10 years, relatively no trouble at all, just getting the chain sharpened and serviced every now and then. But this has been a great saw for me, but it does have its limitations. I use this saw primarily for cutting smaller trees because the size of tree you cut is dictated by how big a bar you have. I'm not going to cut trees any wider than this bar is wide. And I also use this saw for just trimming limbs, just general maintenance work around the farm. Now, the other day I picked up this much bigger saw. As you can see, it's got a lot bigger bar on it, and it's got an engine that's almost twice as big. This thing has a 32cc engine. This big one has a 72cc engine, so it's almost twice the size of saw. But this saw has a completely different purpose than the saw that I've been using for so long. This saw, I'm going to use it for cutting bigger trees, and I've got a portable sawmill coming that this will see work primarily as a sawmill saw. So when you're deciding on what saw to pick the bar length that's appropriate for the size tree you're going to cut. Make sure the saw has enough power, and from there that'll help you decide which saw is going to work best for your particular purpose. The next thing you should think about are your power options. You know, we live in the good old days of chainsaws because never before have there been so many options to power your chainsaw. Back in the past, really the only option was to use gasoline and two-stroke engine oil, and that's what these saws run off of. And that'll give you the most power, but it also is the least green option because it takes petrochemicals, gasoline, and oil to run the saws, and they do produce a little bit of smoke. They're not nearly as smoky as they used to be. The second option is a extension cord chainsaw. Now, for me, that's the most limiting because even though they are handy, all you need is an extension cord and they'll plug into the outlets around your house. You are tethered to the extension cord. And the saws are a little underpowered, but if your only goal is to cut limbs around the house and keep things trimmed up, that may be the perfect option for you. And the third option, and these saws keep getting better and better, are the battery operated chainsaws. Now, there's a variety of manufacturers makes a battery operated chainsaw, but they do have their limitations. They're a little bit underpowered compared to the gasoline chainsaws, and the battery life is somewhat of an issue sometimes, especially after repeated use, and the battery life goes down over time. We've talked a little bit about the ultimate use of a chainsaw and how that will dictate your bar size as well as your engine size. We've talked about your power options, and then the third thing I want to talk to you about is where to buy your saw. One thing to consider is if you ever have a problem with your saw, where do you get it serviced from? So that's what the third thing to think about is where to buy your saw and where the service comes from. I'm an advocate of buying saws locally. I had a local dealer who was willing to walk me through the process and help me select the exact saw that I needed. Was invaluable. Furthermore, if I have any problems with this saw, I've got a local dealer who will stand behind it. And third, as this saw becomes 10 years old like this saw and requires periodic maintenance, I've got a local shop that can take care of it for me. So once you build a relationship with that local shop, they're going to be on the lookout for you. They're going to make sure your saws are always sharp, running well, and be an efficient tool for around the farm. So I encourage you to shop locally when it comes to your chainsaws, but do a little homework around your local area and see what options you have available. I think you'll be happy you did that.